boa tarde a todos e todas que resistiram até aqui. Vamos dar início, então, a essa mesa redonda titulada Política Industrial no Brasil e no Mundo pós-Covid. Eu não vou me alongar, Duda tinha me pedido para fazer uma introdução, mas dado o tardar da hora, não, vou ser mais objetivo aqui. Só dizer que a gente já teve algumas discussões ao longo desse seminário que trouxeram diversas questões que são relevantes quanto à retomada da política industrial, a preocupação da economia dos Estados Unidos, quanto à consolidação, o avanço da economia chinesa. E muitos desses elementos vão ser, digamos, retomados aqui, né, especialmente com a fala do professor Vonortas e também dos colegas presentes. Então, dizer que esse, digamos, é um momento de fechamento de discussões anteriores que foram realizadas durante outras sessões do seminário, especialmente a sessão sobre a agenda de política industrial, a agenda de inovação, que foi realizada hoje mais cedo com os membros da ABIN. Essa mesa ela vai ser, digamos, bilíngue, então nós teremos momentos em inglês, alguns momentos em português também, e nesse momento eu faço uma transição para o inglês. So, let's start this section on industrial policy. It's a pleasure to receive here Professor Nicholas Vonortas from George Washington University, United States, and also to receive Professor Renato Garcia from Unicamp, Professor Marcelo Pinho from UFSCAR, and Professor Jorge Britto from Universidade Federal Fluminense. So, let's start with Professor Vonortas. Professor, thank you very much for coming here, and so the word is yours.
Thank you. To look at it, that's why. I don't remember everything. Boa tarde. I am sorry I cannot speak in Portuguese. I try to understand sometimes, but most of the time I fail. So I will do this in English if possible. So what I am going to talk about today, I have prepared a little presentation for you. About the industrial policy in the United States. It's a very, very, very peculiar phenomenon in modern times for that country. And thus I wanted to show you what is going on. Yeah. Where do I point there? The bottom. All right. So the American system looks like this, just to get an idea. On the one side is Congress with Senate and the House, and the other side is the President, the White House. These people here sort of propose what the country will do, and those people over there, Congress, have the money. These people who propose what the country should do have zero money. Those people who have the money are elected biannually, and they serve. They have a lot of committees, very different committees. When the president will send the proposal every year, the United States has a budget cycle of a single year. Not multiple years like other countries. So there will be a lot of debate, and out of this debate, some programs will appear at the end, right? Some policy. The idea here for you to understand is that there is a lot of negotiation every year because none of these sides has the upper hand. So Congress cannot dictate to the president what to do, and the president cannot dictate to the Congress. If they don't agree, the government shuts down. So nobody can tell what you understand. They have to agree on something, right? So that's important for you to understand. And then the general principles of policy since World War II have been these four little things. So the first principle is that everybody agrees, all the parties agree, that basic science must be supported by the government. It's a government business. It's a public good. The private sector will not do it, so the public sector will support it. Second, the federal agencies, right? The ministries, agency, we call the ministries agencies. The ministries then have missions. They pursue missions. One mission may be energy, the other may be health, the other may be defense, whatever, the veterans, right? There is no agency that pursues technology. There is nothing like this in the United States. We don't have a Ministry of Science and Technology. There is no such thing, right? This is very important. Because, in other words, there is no agency whose mission is to develop technology. Some of these agencies will develop a lot of technology, but they develop technology in order to pursue their mission, which may be whatever, the environment, right? But none of them will pursue technology for technology. No, there is no such thing. Third, the federal government is not supposed to, in theory, right, is not supposed to pick winners, whether these winners are companies or technologies. So in theory, the government should not say, my favorite company is IBM, let's say. Or it should not say that in artificial intelligence, I like this particular approach, right? But the government should be much more general, focusing on many things. And four, the government has really a very important role, not interventionist, supposedly, but making sure that the game is fair. So it regulates industries, it makes sure that there is competition, that the courts work well, that there is good legislation, and so forth. But it's not supposed to take sides, right? To intervene. These are the general principles, right? So you don't see this, but I will tell you what it is. So if you go a little bit back, 10 years back, you will see that then it was President Obama, and President Obama came to the White House, and he had a really serious problem. He took a situation that was in a crisis, right? And during that time, they created a very, very general approach to policy, right? This is science and technology policy. So the idea here, as you will see in this graph, is that at the bottom of the pyramid is the infrastructure. So here is education, skills, fundamental research, physical infrastructure. So that's the bottom of the pyramid. Then in the middle is the functioning of the markets, right? So we must have incentives for companies to do research. We must have entrepreneurship, incentives for entrepreneurship. We must have competitive markets and so forth. And at the top, you have the priorities. Here are some priorities of the government. And if you actually see the priorities 10 years ago, are actually very similar to the priorities today that I will show you now. So, clean energy revolution, biotech, nanotech, advanced manufacturing, space applications, healthcare, and educational technologies. Actually, you will see that the priorities have not changed very much, even though there is this impression that things change dramatically. So what is happening today, as you may have heard, is that there is a huge commotion to introduce very activist policies, right? And within the last 3 months or so, there is a trilogy of programs that have passed through Congress that are of unprecedented nature. It has never happened before. It's really unique. Now, many people wonder how come, and things are changing so dramatically in the United States, and the how come is to be found across the Pacific. So there is a country across the Pacific which is huge and very aggressive, and openly declares that it's not interested in number 2 position internationally. It's looking for number 1. So obviously, the other country on the other side of the Pacific, which considers itself number 1, will need to defend its position. Right? So you have this big struggle between these two, the old superpower and the new ascending probable superpower, right? That are struggling, and the old, what you will see here is that how the old superpower is trying to defend its position, right? So this is the first kind of program, right? The first one. It's it's called nowadays, as it passed finally, it is called the Chips and Science Act. But its name before, it was the U.S. Innovation and Competition Act, as it was coming of the Senate. Now, what this does is that it has several different legislations. Act is a bill, is a legislation, right? That's an act. This has had bipartisan support, and it didn't start now. It started actually during the Trump administration. So during the Trump administration, Congress started pushing forward sort of things that to pay more attention to industry. There is a feeling that the United States is falling behind in some sectors, and primarily here is the semiconductor sectors. As you know, this is strategic. The United States is not thinking just about industry. The private sector is thinking about defense very, very seriously. And losing the ability to produce the best semiconductors in the world will be tragic for defense reasons, right? So there is the alarms rang some years ago. If you remember, Apple was using Intel semiconductors. So if you had the computer or an Apple computer, it would say Intel inside. Now the Apple computers do not say Intel inside because Apple abandoned Intel and is buying its chips from the Taiwanese company, TSMC. That rang huge bells into the American Congress, because TSMC is based in a little island across China, and China wants to take this. So if you wonder why the United States will go into war with China for Taiwan, which they will if there is an aggression, is this single company. The reason for confrontation there will be primarily this single company. It is so important, right? So this thing had started moving through Congress in 2020, and it was it collected a lot of different bills that were moving around in Congress at that time, and here is a list of them, like a list of the most important. One about chips, semiconductors, right? A second about research in general, in research and technology in general. It has a very key name, the Endless Frontier Act. You may, if you are in this field, you will remember that this was the title of the book of Vannevar Bush in 1945. That started this field more or less. Then you look just the names and you will understand what it is. Secure America's Future Act and Meeting the China Challenge Act. So it's clearly China is written all over the place, right? Is that? So if you want to see what kinds of technologies they are talking about, this is a sort of a laundry list. So we are talking about artificial intelligence, probably the most important. We're talking about quantum computing, which is the next big step in computing, right? Again, computing semiconductors, robotics, biotech, cybersecurity, advanced materials, and so forth, and communication, right? No surprise here. I mean, the fields are well known. What is happening inside these fields is important. But what we need to pay attention to, and where the change is happening these days, is that for the first time in modern American history, that principle where agencies will not intervene in individual technologies is being violated. So there is significant money that goes to this National Science Foundation, which funds research, basic research in the United States, for actually a technology directorate. This is first time. And this is supposed to be a way to try to coordinate across the federal government in particular sectors. Right? So this is one major change that is happening. So suddenly they see the need to be more organized in the way they pursue particular technologies, right? As government. So this is one. The second major change comes down here, and it says that the government now realizes that the wealth in the past few years has been distributed very unevenly. So I don't know if you have seen the election pictures from the United States. Usually the two coasts, the left and the right, are blue, more democratic, you know, and the middle is all red. So the coasts have benefited much more than the middle from the system that is in place out there, globalization. So there is a serious realization these days in the political system that we have disregarded the middle of the country. And the middle of the country was not doing very well by this globalized system, whereas the sides were doing very, very nicely, right? And now, the pie is supposed there is an effort to redistribute the pie. So the idea is to create regional innovation hubs, but in places that didn't exist before. Because when you start thinking where are the innovation hubs in the United States, are all in the coast. All of them, left and right. In the middle, maybe Chicago. In the north is something. Maybe Texas is developing in the south, right? Texas is attracting a lot of investment these days. But really the two coasts are the places that we know. Now there is an effort to redistribute. Important thing here, another important thing is that manufacturing is getting renewed emphasis. So advanced manufacturing is very much in focus, right? A lot of manufacturing left the country, the manufacturing capability. They feel that designing is okay, doing research and designing new products is okay, but you need also to produce them. And now there is a major push to repatriate investments, manufacturing investments, but in ways that is sustainable to a high-income country. You understand? A high-income country has high salaries. So you cannot just repatriate the investment. You may be able to repatriate it only if there is a new way to manufacturing. High tech, basically, technology intensive, right? Okay, so that's one set of legislation that moved, right? The second is here. There is a whole set of pieces that come under this name. So it's the Investments and Jobs Act. These two, as you see below there I say if it is single party or bipartisan. We have only two parties in our Congress, right? So these two is bipartisan. In other words, it is led by people from both parties. So they agree on these things, in other words. So here we have large amounts of money, $500 billion of new money and $500 billion of repurposed money for infrastructure. Now, for a country like the United States, even those numbers are small, right? But for the other countries, these are humongous numbers. I mean, this is a lot of money, right? So what is happening here is that there is an understanding that the infrastructure in the United States is getting old. And there will be significant investments to you see, special infrastructure spending legislation recently approved, repurposes some money for priorities such as upgrading the electricity grid, transportation systems, broadband networks, and all this, the infrastructure, physical infrastructure. Right? In these pieces of legislation now you will see a lot of reference to procurement, using the buying power of the government to actually create better infrastructure. Here is a sort of, you don't see it very well from that distance, but there is some numbers here. It's in millions of dollars. So up here is $3.5 billion. So you see the major things: carbon management, clean hydrogen, energy storage, and all the keywords are in here: critical minerals, renewable energy, grid resilience, nuclear energy, advanced manufacturing. So there is investments that go everywhere in this list. Some of you may know, for example, that energy storage these days is a major question. China has moved fast and has actually secured critical materials, and now the idea is to actually move and secure whatever is remaining, because we may find ourselves in a chokehold like the Europeans find themselves with Russian gas. So we may have the technology, we may not be given, we may not be able to buy the minerals that we want in order to produce the products. It's really serious, the situation. So beyond this, the legislations actually have references to global value chains. So we had some disasters. COVID showed us that we are vulnerable. In fact, I lived through a very sort of funny, it's kind of funny. We ran out of masks in the United States when the COVID hit. We ran out of masks, and in my building, the old ladies were sewing masks to give to the hospitals. It was such a critical situation. Guess who was producing masks? Who is the biggest production of masks? 3M. Right? 3M is an American company, but where are they producing the masks? In China. And when the supply chain stopped, we didn't have masks. Right? So this really shook the foundations in the United States. So now there is this situation here from the White House. This is a White House document that says that direct to build resilient supply chains. So as a result of this, what I show you is just a table of contents, and I will tell you what it says. It says that the different departments, different agencies, and this is the Department of Commerce, are given the task to review the semiconductor manufacturing and advanced packaging value chain. This, the Department of Energy is given the task to review the value chains in large capacity batteries. The Department of Defense needs to examine minerals and materials. The Department of Health and Human Services reviews pharmaceuticals and pharmaceutical ingredients. So there is a whole big effort to review the supply chains and make sure that we will never be in that situation again that we found ourselves before. Now, the White House has a huge objective these days to come up with some sustainability program, right? So immediately after taking office, the president issued an executive order, tackling the climate crisis. It was important, a lot of good words they put there in that executive order. An executive order for the president is not binding. It's just a guidance. It's a guidance saying that the White House thinks that we should do this, right? And that is a signal. That is a signal that they will actually move to somehow make it happen, right? But the executive order is not really a law that people will follow. Then only a few months later, they come up with a second executive order for back to back and a federal sustainability plan, which is very, very ambitious. And it's like this. You can see it on the internet. You can go find it and look at it. It is this sustainability plan. It came out exactly the same day as the new executive order from the president appeared, and it has. Oh, so this is gibberish. We don't understand anything. Okay. It calls for these four things basically. 100% carbon pollution-free electricity on a net annual basis by 2030. Very aggressive. 100% zero-emission vehicle acquisitions by 2035 from the federal government, right? Buildings, a net zero emissions building portfolio, the whole portfolio by 2045. Right. And materials, net zero emissions for federal procurement not later than 2050. Right? These are very aggressive. I doubt that they will manage to go this way, right? But this is the plan. Now, I don't think it moves moving, right? All right, okay, let's go here. So out of this plan, so the White House put forward a plan, right? Out of this plan now comes, just days ago, another huge set of legislation. So just a few days. Now the difference, can we take it down, go on more beyond this? The next one. All right, leave it there. Now, important here is that this is a single party effort. So this is a democratic push. The Republicans oppose this. So there are three big families of legislations, right? Two of them are bipartisan, but when it comes to this, the so-called Inflation Reduction Act, it has nothing to do with inflation, actually. It has to do with the environment, sustainability primarily, and with health as well. This is very democratic. And the idea here is that the government will intervene in making sure that not only we try to attain those objectives for clean energy and whatever, but we will attain them with US products. Now that's the industrial policy that the United States never had before. The previous incident that might remind something like this that I remember is with Japan. When we had the big problem with Japan, Congress moved in and created a huge number of legislations that you probably know. Some of them are very famous internationally by now. For example, the SBIR program, Small Business Innovation Research Program, right? Basically, every country has imitated that. In Sao Paulo, that I know, FAPESP has the PP program, which is exactly the SBIR. It's for small companies. The Stevenson-Wilder Act, which is for technology transfer. The Bayh-Dole Act, which is for intellectual property protection of research with federal money, and so forth. So a large number of legislations then to try to sort of fend off Japan, right? Now there is again even a bigger activity to fend off China. China is a very different kind of opponent now, right? Because Japan, in terms of security, totally depends on the United States, right? So Japan depends totally on the United States for its own security, military, right? The same way of Korea. That is not the case with China. So China has its own independent approach, right? So the idea here is that this piece of legislation, which looks at the environment, the sustainability effort of the White House, joins this previous two. These are the two bipartisan acts, piece of legislation, into a trilogy of quite important and fairly intervention instruments. No, now they intervene, right? To promote a different vision of the American economy. So here there is an effort to be transformative, right? You see, they use the whole spectrum of policy of available policy tools. I mean, if you go into this, you will see that they do everything from subsidies to tariffs to tax things, to sustain demand, to guaranteed loans, to whatever you can imagine of policy tools. And demonstration programs, supply push, demand pull, and protective policies. It's the whole gamut. This is creating and opening a Pandora's box internationally, right? It is opening a Pandora's box, and I will finish now, because the United States has, for example, signed free trade agreements with countries. And only in a few weeks, I will be in Korea, the Koreans are completely upset with what is happening in the United States, because the IRA, for example, has incentives for people to buy electric vehicles. But these electric vehicles need to be produced in the United States. So the Koreans who have signed a free trade agreement with the United States, wait, foul here. This is foul because we produce also electric vehicles and we have a free trade agreement with you guys, and you need to include the Korean vehicles in this legislation, right? So it creates huge problems. Now, if you go to the White House website, you will see that actually this legislation does other things as well. So the biggest, I think the clean energy is the biggest, but this legislation also goes into healthcare. And healthcare is a particularly strange issue for the United States. You may know, if I tell you how much it costs us, you will just do not believe it. Healthcare in the United States costs 3.5 times, 3.5 or 3 to 3.5 times the Brazilian GDP. That's healthcare in the United States. And what do we get out of this? The most expensive medicine in the world, and 10% of our people not having even basic insurance. So the system is rotten, right? The system is not working well. If you are high income, we have the best health care for you. The best medicine, the experimental ways, everything you can imagine is in the United States. But if you are not wealthy, if you are poor, if you're on low sides, forget it. You can forget this, right? Even basic care becomes a problem for you, right? So there is a lot of push for a new approach to healthcare. Let me give you an example. Our pension plans, until now, are forbidden to negotiate with the companies the price of the drug. Can you believe this? So the pension plans that are supported with taxpayers' money are not allowed to negotiate the prices of the drugs, but they are obliged to buy every drug that is approved in the United States. So this is a completely unfair thing. Now, why is it? Why are we crazy? Why would a country do this, like shoot itself on the foot like this? Because the prices, the idea is that the high prices will create incentives for the companies to create new drugs, to research, right? They have huge money, they throw huge money into research. Right? So the incentive to create this expenditure is to be able to charge amazing money to the taxpayers, basically. Right? So that industry is a little bit problematic. We subsidize them at the beginning. Essentially, the National Institutes of Health is a big subsidy to pharmaceuticals. Right? It spends $35 billion every year. Every year. $35 billion to do basic research, to distribute to the universities, to research institutes, whatever, to do basic research, which is then hopefully be picked up by the pharmaceutical companies, and then they will turn this supposedly into medicines, I don't know, new compounds, right? And then at the end, so we subsidize them at the beginning, and then at the end, we subsidize them hugely also by not allowing a negotiation of prices. So there are provisions about that now that Biden wants to stop this actually, to stop this business. The idea then is, and I conclude here, the idea is that this is a new era of policy. For the United States. And the reason is the external threat. There is a feeling that we are falling behind in critical areas. Semiconductors is one. There is a lot of discussion about artificial intelligence. It may be another. And quantum computing as well. There is a lot of discussion about that. So the new direction is here, a lot of interventionism. And this is the country who, from the World War II, has those principles, right, that I was telling you at the beginning. So you should expect a different international environment as we move forward. So what you see happening, the way you saw China developing until now, is probably not going to be the same in the future, because the system on which they were based to do this is changing rapidly. Basically, that's the message here. So the system that helped China And the Chinese, of course, the people need all the credit, right? I mean, we credit them. They have done a marvelous job. But they've done a marvelous job by being extremely interventionist and by not playing fairly. Can I tell you something? Tell me the big American company that operates freely in Japan. Name one. None. Google is not there. Amazon is not there. Apple sort of barely survives there. Uber is not there. None of these successful American companies in China. Why do you think they are not there? Because they are not allowed to play fairly. There is a lot of pressure from the government, not for the American companies not to be there. So now it's a time that this giant, for some reason, started thinking differently, and in the next 2 or 3 years, things will happen. Actually, I hope it's not going to be a war, but for Taiwan and for chips, it could be. I mean, it could reach that level. It's such a conflict. It has changed completely. China was actually assisted by Clinton administration. I don't know, some of you who are older may remember. Clinton actually pushed very hard for China to become a member of the World Trade Organization. And the reason was that this big country that was opening up, if it was included in this organization and other international fora, it would actually be constrained to play with the international rules. It has proven that this did not happen. And now that they have closed the gap in many areas, the situation has become really critical. Thank you very much.
So, thank you very much, Professor Vonortas. And Renato, por favor, a palavra é sua. Quem eu já agradeço novamente pela presença aqui.
Thank you very much, Ulisses. Thank you, Nick. Thank you very much for the audience to stay here the last day, the last session. It's a pleasure to discuss this kind of things, this kind of subject with you, with this audience. Nick, your presentation was very, very nice, very interesting. But I will not do the same for Brazil. I would like to show some Brazilian initiatives to support innovation, manufacturing, and so on. But I will try to change the focus of my presentation to the opportunities that changes in technology and the changes in the global value chain can open for industrial policy. And then, when we in Brazil, we Brazilian researchers on economics of innovation and so on, when we see numbers that Nick has already shown for us, I don't have the word in English to say our queixo cai. Tá certo? Because, I don't know the expression in English, I'm sorry. But because it's very difficult to find in Brazil something at least that looks like of these numbers. So, but in this way, my challenge here is just to see what opportunities we have for Brazil to think in industrial policy with new configuration of a global value chain, new technologies, and then post-COVID. Let me try. Yeah. So what we are talking about, the post-COVID world, and there are many authors, and I completely agree that there is an opportunity to stop and reverse, let me say, decades desindustrialization and even development in Brazil. In this point, I completely agree with Nick, and what they are doing in the United States, that manufacturing should be in the core of these initiatives, and manufacturing that can use the new technologies, what we call the Industry 4.0, and also environmentally responsible and use of renewable energy. I have to say sorry for this slide, because I think it's important to say what are the definition of industrial policy. I think that for this audience, everybody knows and everybody agree what industrial policy should be, but among our colleagues in economics and so on, industrial policy is not a well-known concept, a well-known notion. So what I am saying about industrial policy here is what Chang showed us in the 90s, that the government intervention, I put in the slide, government intervention in a specific sector, industry or technology, and the firms are their components of these technologies and these sectors and these industries, which is designed to boost the growth prospects of the industry and promote development of the wider economy. So the idea of selective policy has to take into account, have to consider the industries and technologies that can spread growth and prosperity for the whole economy. In some new studies on industrial policy, some authors use industrial policy, others use innovation policy. For me, it's very hard to differentiate industrial policy for innovation policy, because I think, and I think people in the United States agree with me, that industrial policy should be towards to innovation and to the building of capability. So I think there is no difference nowadays talking about industrial policy and talking about innovation policy. So why this is important? Because every measure of industrial policy that you think to put in the road, it's important that these measures are always linked to innovation and the building of capabilities. So some assumptions. I will try to be very quick in these points. I have 8 points, assumptions. The first one is manufacturing. Manufacturing should be in the center, in the core of these initiatives. Industrial policy must be systemic and not isolated or delegated to specialists. It's very easy to say, very hard to do this kind of things. It's in the line of Roderick show us some decades ago also. The optimal scale of the industrial sector depends on their capabilities, ambition, and also preference. So there isn't a receipt, a red receipt. So you have to understand your specificities, and then build the measure of industrial policy, taking this into account. But industrial policy always must take the high road of structural change and high manufacturing. So innovation should be, as I said, in the core of industrial policy. Industrial policy should aim direct to technical progress, prepare for sustainable, even less growth. There is an increasing set of authors that there is a research line, for example, that say the dark side of innovation. I think it's important to to consider also this point, even because in the past I don't know, we all believe, but most of all believe that innovation is good and thought. Nowadays, this is not true anymore, and there are some studies that show that innovation could be in systemic ways, sometimes good for the firm in microeconomic terms, but for the society, it's not good, should not be good. And for the society, the goals of industrial policy should be the paramount. Should be paramount, including sectoral and horizontal measures. It's important also to understand that the design and the operation of industrial policy is a search process. I'm sorry, and then industrial policy will take it with it mistakes and errors, uncertainty. So it's important also that my last point, evaluation, including to correct ways and measures. Well, what we have in the post-COVID, I'll not repeat the main technologies of Industry 4.0. Yeah, but I want to stress the last point, is the pervasiveness of these core technologies. So I'm not say it's easy, but to select technologies, select industries and technologies related to the Industry 4.0 should be the technologies that are selected. Why? Because they are very pervasive to the industrial sectors, to the economy in general. And we have, as Nick has shown for us, is pandemic reinforce the importance of manufacturing. Nick showed the example of the 3M, but there are a lot of others, even in Brazil. Talking about Brazil, I asked for my colleague that most of you know, Célio Iratuca. Célio Iratuca sent me this chart showing what we are doing with our manufacturing sector in Brazil. So we can see any indicator. You can see that manufacturing is decreasing a lot in Brazil as a share of GDP, as a share of manufacturing in the world, as a share of manufacturing in developing countries. So we really have a problem of manufacturing. I don't know, comparing to the United States, but we really have a problem with manufacturing. So, but on the other hand, we have in post-COVID global chains some very interesting opportunities for industrial policy. Why? Many countries, Nick showed us about industrial policy in the United States, but if we read documents of industrial policy in European countries, in Asian countries, we will see similar points related to increasing of regionalization of supply chains, in many cases nationalization of supply chain capabilities, the necessity to create redundant operations in some critical inputs and services, including increasing of inventories of these critical inputs, which brings the opportunity for both increasing local and domestic supplier base, and also using, in this recovery of manufacturing, using more digitalization and innovation and automation. So we can find several opportunities for industrial policy. So my last two slides is to propose some basic principles for industrial policy. The first one is the importance to select and to choose sectoral and industry strategies. So government, once more, easy to say, hard to do, but especially for a developing country as we, as Brazil, but government needs to identify manufacturing sectors and subsectors also with best chance for success, and coordinating specific interventions with other sectors and stakeholders. The second point for these basic principles for industrial policy is, Nick said us about the experience of US also, the public procurement. So government should use the public procurement to lever domestic production, rather than making purchases based on the best price, for example. My third point appears in some lines in the United States experience, but I think this could be a good opportunity for Brazil, is the networks, ecosystems, and clusters. I'm sorry, I'm not, I don't know the expression in English again. I'm not taking everything from my side. That everybody knows that I study these kind of things. But I really think that this could be interesting, even because spillovers, network effects, collaboration is increasingly more important. If you see, if you, Duda has some studies with Ulisses and other colleagues about this. If you see the global scientific networks, we will see a stronger concentration in the world. In the United States, you will see 3 or 4 main hotspots of innovation. In China, one important hotspot in innovation. In Brazil, not important to the world, but important to Brazil. Someone will call me as Delfim Neto saying this, because, well, if you're talking about industrial policy and to strengthen networks and spillovers, so the investments will be where in regions that already have these capabilities. So if I don't have time to discuss regional development here, but I have also not a receipt, of course, but some measures to regional development also. I'm not saying that we have to invest just in São Paulo, Rio, and Campinas, and so on, and Belo Horizonte, but I think to strengthen these benefits from clusters and spillovers, some kind of regional concentration is important. Innovation, it's not necessary to repeat. My fifth point is fiscal support for investment. We are talking in the session in the morning the importance in Brazil to increase the investment rate. I completely agree with this, and I don't see another way to increase investment in general, not only in innovation, but in general innovation, the capital expenditures of the whole economy, without strong public support. My last slide my sixth is the 60th principle is industrial infrastructure. Industrial policy have to help offset weakness on private investment, especially in this post-COVID economy. Once again, in the case of Brazil, it's not so difficult because we have a very important bank of development, so using public funding to foster not only access to capital and support investment, manufacturing investment, and the last point are leveraging energy, skills and training, strengthening skills and training, not only universities, but especially technical and technological programs. And the last point, also important, regarding trading policy. So, as I said, I want to thank you, everybody, to stay here to discuss this point. I unfortunately don't have an analysis or evaluation of Brazilian policy, but I think that these points could help us for the discussion for the new industrial policy in the next year. Thank you, Ulisses.
So, thank you very much, Renato. I appreciate a lot when you puxou a sardinha to our side. So, Marcelo. A brasa. Yes, we have to translate this, but next mission. So now Marcelo. Marcelo are going to make his presentation. Thank you very much, Marcelo.
Agora sim, né? Tá bom, eu queria começar com um agradecimento, que é usual, e com um pedido de desculpas, o que é inusual. O agradecimento é ao pessoal do CDPLA. Eu vou falar aqui em nome do Duda, porque é quem está na mesa da frente. O Ricardo estava aqui também, não sei se ainda está lá, mas está disfarçado. É difícil de perceber que é você, cara. Agora sim. Um agradecimento por mais essa oportunidade de vir a Diamantina. Márcia está aqui também, agora estou vendo. Um agradecimento a todo o pessoal do CDPLA, o Nel também está aqui, pelo convite. É uma satisfação enorme para mim vir aqui e participar, em especial, dessa mesa. E o pedido de desculpas é para o professor Vonortas, porque eu não vou falar inglês. Eu já fiz o pedido de desculpas pessoalmente para ele. Minha capacidade de expressão em inglês diminui muitíssimo, gente. Então, eu preparei um briefing para ele e espero que isso seja suficiente para que a gente tenha depois, eventualmente, debate. Na minha apresentação, deixa eu ver se isso aqui está avançando direitinho. Tá. Na minha apresentação, gente, eu queria começá-la. Esta sessão se chama Política Industrial no Brasil e no Mundo pós-Covid. E, sem diminuir a importância do evento da Covid, em tantos aspectos da vida humana, da vida social, eu vou começar dizendo que a minha apresentação foi pensada num sentido de discutir a política industrial no Brasil pós outras coisas. Não apenas pós-Covid, mas pós-hiperglobalização, pós-governo Biden, né, na linha do que o professor Vonortas nos expressou aqui, né, toda a evolução do marco de política industrial nos Estados Unidos, mas também pós a nossa crise, a crise que a economia brasileira vem passando desde, pelo menos, 2015, e principalmente pós-regressão, né, da economia brasileira e do sistema industrial em particular, num processo que é longuíssimo, né, que talvez a gente possa traçar há 40 anos. Então, a minha perspectiva vai ser essa, vai ser pós-Covid, sim, mas sim pós todas essas outras coisas. É nesse sentido que eu intitulei a apresentação Depois de Tudo, né? Bom, eu queria começar dizendo, talvez não seja ocioso aqui para essa plateia, que, embora muitos desses eventos apontem para uma inflexão importante do marco de política econômica, o neoliberalismo não é, ao contrário do que a gente escuta em alguns círculos, nem de perto um cachorro morto. Nem de longe, melhor dizendo, né? Assim como a ortodoxia macroeconômica, todos esses eventos que a gente tem assistido, sobretudo nos Estados Unidos, mas também na Europa, em alguns outros lugares, mostram certamente uma regressão digamos, do espaço do neoliberalismo como inspiração básica da política macroeconômica. Mas eventos recentes mostram claramente que ele é um bicho resiliente, né? Eu tenho aqui referência recente de 2 artigos de professores muito prestigiados na profissão, a professora Anne Kruger, de um lado, né, discutindo, por exemplo, questões da política industrial americana, que o professor Vonortas nos detalhou aqui, e mais recentemente saiu essa semana, alguns de vocês talvez tenham visto naquele Project Syndicate, uma discussão do Robert Barro sobre a política macroeconômica, que, em última análise, dizia que a culpa da inflação nos Estados Unidos é da política fiscal. Ponto. Né? Então, isso também faz parte da perspectiva que animou aqui a minha intervenção, digamos, o argumento que eu vou defender para vocês. A minha exposição tem 2 partes. Infelizmente, sou conhecido por falar muito. Vou tentar reduzir aqui ao máximo, mas eu vou começar fazendo algo que pode parecer para muitos de vocês a apresentação de uma coleção de platitudes. Eu vou começar mostrando elementos que caracterizam isso que eu chamo de regressão, que eu estou chamando de regressão da economia brasileira, em particular da indústria, essa regressão que ela tem passado já há algumas décadas e que se agravou desde meados da década passada, né? Desde a crise iniciada lá em 2014, 2015. Com base no quadro que eu vou traçar, eu vou defender o argumento de que, eu não tinha combinado com o Renato, hein? De que, diferentemente do que alguns colegas e amigos mesmo têm proposto, a política industrial não pode ser considerada apenas uma política de inovação. Ela é também, e muito fortemente, uma política de inovação, mas, a meu juízo, não é apenas isso. E eu não tinha combinado com o Renato, porque eu tinha pensado em outro amigo que publicou um artigo que começava assim, que a política industrial é essencialmente uma política de inovação, e por mais que seja importante a inovação, eu acho que ela não é apenas isso. E depois disso eu vou indicar pontos que, a meu juízo, alguns pontos mesmo, é totalmente assistemático, que uma política industrial consequente tem que abordar para, pelo menos, ajudar a estancar esse processo regressivo pelo qual a economia brasileira tem passado há tanto tempo. Bom, o contexto fundamental é esse, de que a crise deflagrada em 2015 e 2016 acentuou uma longa trajetória cujo sentido último, eu não consigo encontrar termo melhor, de regressão. Vou destacar 2 elementos, como eu falei antes, para caracterizar esse quadro de regressão. Primeiro, a incapacidade do país de sustentar um ritmo de investimento, de acumulação de capital, foi algo já discutido aqui em sessões anteriores, compatíveis minimamente com o desenvolvimento. E, segundo, alguns indicadores de desindustrialização. Acho que eu vou poder passar rápido por isso, talvez sejam realmente platitudes. Eu estou até agora na dúvida se eu deveria fazer isso ou não. Mas eu preparei, então eu vou fazer. Este gráfico aqui, desse segundo slide, do slide 2, conta uma história bem conhecida, né? Desde a estabilização inflacionária, né? A formação bruta de capital fixo no Brasil tem patinou aí abaixo de 20%, mesmo depois que a inflação maluca lá dos anos 80 e 90 foi debelada, a formação bruta de capital nunca se elevou acima disso. Ela se elevou moderadamente no segundo e terceiro governos petistas, mas depois da crise ela despencou, né? Caiu para um patamar abaixo de 15% do PIB. E, apesar de ter uma certa recuperação aí em 2021, foi uma recuperação até do ponto de vista de conjuntura macroeconômica, não foi uma recuperação desprezível, ela continua abaixo, a formação bruta de capital fixo no Brasil continua abaixo do patamar de 2010. Né? Nós tivemos, na época que a gente ainda achava que era um problema mais circunstancial, a gente colecionou décadas perdidas, desperdiçadas e coisas do gênero. Né? A gente já mudou um pouco de patamar nessa discussão. Eu não sei que adjetivo seria dado para essa última década. Bom, o que eu quero acentuar é outra coisa, que o comportamento do investimento público é um dos determinantes desse quadro. Tem outros determinantes, evidentemente, talvez mais importantes até, mas eu queria acentuar o comportamento do investimento público. A trajetória de retração do investimento público como percentagem do PIB é evidente. Né? O slide mostra isso em dois componentes, né? As empresas estatais e o governo geral. O das estatais talvez seja menos grave, né? A partir dos anos 90, com a privatização, seria realmente quase por definição, isso teria que diminuir, né? Mas o do governo geral não. Né? O governo geral é um recuo contínuo e que continua acontecendo. O menor ponto do gráfico é o último ponto, né? É 2021. E as razões são mais ou menos conhecidas, tem competição com outras despesas, e muito importantemente com despesas financeiras, a dificuldade de financiamento do Estado e, mais recentemente, a repressão fiscal, que foi tornada legislação até ser contornada por razões que vocês conhecem. Mas a situação chegou a um ponto que, desde 2015, o investimento líquido do setor público é negativo. O investimento não cobre a depreciação. Desde 2015. As consequências disso são conhecidas, não apenas do ponto de vista macroeconômico, né, digamos, de curto prazo. E eu manipulei esses dados um pouquinho mais, talvez o melhor slide seja esse aqui, para mostrar como a participação do setor público na formação bruta de capital fixo regrediu tremendamente, de 35%, grosso modo, nos anos 70, para 10% no ano passado. Mas, além das consequências macroeconômicas diretas, tem um impacto sobre a infraestrutura brasileira. Né? A degradação é patente. Como ela é longa, parece que a gente se acostumou com isso, né? Mas são museus queimando, são pontes caindo, viadutos despencando, obras que se arrastam por décadas. E disso, o último gráfico a esse respeito, não me estender excessivamente. Isso ainda é pior no caso do investimento federal. Isso é a decomposição nas três esferas do governo, a decomposição da participação de cada um deles no investimento público. E a infraestrutura pela qual o governo federal é responsável é a infraestrutura que, digamos, tem maior potência sobre a atividade econômica. Bom, isso é para caracterizar uma dimensão que é importante, é conhecida, eu acho, por quase todo mundo, mas talvez não seja sempre devidamente enfatizado. O outro ponto que eu quero destacar, o Renato já falou, eu acho que eu vou poder passar rapidamente, é o quadro de reprimarização da economia brasileira. Né? Alguns anos, talvez uma década e meia atrás, esse era um termo que era utilizado com muita parcimônia. Hoje não, né? O indicador mais óbvio é esse aí, né, da participação da manufatura, né, dos bens industrializados nas exportações. O último número que a gente tem é o menor em 50 anos. É menor do que qualquer número, é menor do que números anteriores ao segundo PND. E um outro dado associado a esse é que, embora a economia brasileira, por outro lado, eu vou voltar a esse ponto lá na frente, tenha, neste século, apresentado saldos comerciais muito expressivos, nos produtos de alta intensidade tecnológica, de média alta e de alta intensidade tecnológica, nessas duas categorias, o déficit é não só enorme, como persistente. Resistiu à mudança do patamar da taxa de câmbio em 2011, 2012. Vocês devem lembrar, né? A partir de 2011, 2012, aquela sobrevalorização cambial que caracterizou o início do século foi, em grande medida, revertida, caoticamente, mas foi. No início havia até alguma política, depois foi do jeito que vocês acompanharam, mas até mesmo a recessão, né? Depois de 2015 e 2016, houve, claro, um impacto da recessão nesse déficit comercial, mas muito rapidamente, com essa recuperação medíocre, se é que dá para chamar de recuperação a partir de 2017, o déficit comercial explodiu de novo, né, nessas categorias de maior intensidade tecnológica. Bom, eu não quero dizer com isso, gente, que os últimos 40 anos no Brasil não tenham tido, do ponto de vista econômico, nada de bom, do ponto de vista socioeconômico, nada de bom, né? É evidente que, desde a democratização, nós tivemos avanços muito importantes em algumas políticas sociais, para falar de uma que era mais negligenciada no passado do que tem sido recentemente, a cobertura da saúde pública, por exemplo, né? Nós não temos nada parecido com esse quadro medonho que o Vonortas mencionou para a gente de uma população totalmente desamparada do sistema de saúde, né? Outra coisa que, evidentemente, o padrão da história brasileira tem avanço do final da década de 90 até meados da década passada, a concentração de renda, os indicadores variam, mas pelo menos parou de se acentuar. Isso não é pouca coisa no Brasil, né? E mais recentemente a gente conseguiu algo que parecia impensável, não? O jogo eleitoral conseguiu fazer que o governo mais reacionário que talvez tenha sido produzido neste século no planeta, né, tinha um competidor à altura, que era o governo do Duterte, mas o governo do Duterte das Filipinas, né, o presidente das Filipinas, era também extremamente reacionário, mas durante a pandemia ele se mostrou muito mais responsável do que o nosso, né? Então, depois da pandemia, a gente pode usar sem muita dúvida que é o governo mais reacionário eleito no planeta, que saiu das urnas no planeta neste século. Mas esse governo, o jogo eleitoral levou a ampliar as transferências de renda para os pobres. Isso é um desses produtos paradoxais do processo democrático, né? Bom, outras novidades positivas também, né? O país, isso para a minha geração de economistas e para duas gerações antes delas, pelo menos antes da minha geração, é muito diferente. O país está há 20 anos sem uma crise aberta de balanço de pagamentos. Não é que nós não tenhamos tido nenhum problema de balanço de pagamentos nesses últimos 20 anos. Foi um dos componentes importantes da crise de 2015 e 2016. E houve também alguns outros episódios de fuga de capitais. Mas nada parecido com aquela situação em que a expressão de nós economistas, aqui tem vários que foram formados nos anos 80, em que o rabo abanava o cachorro, né? O ajuste do setor externo determinava toda a política macroeconômica, né? Eu estou aqui, não sei se eu tenho tempo para fazer isso, estou pensando em fazer uma gracinha típica das que o João faz quando se dirige ao público. Vocês sabem qual é o tamanho do superávit comercial acumulado pelo Brasil neste século? Alguém tem esse número na cabeça? Alguém chuta? 580 bilhões de dólares. 580 bilhões de dólares. Isso é muito, muito diferente do que era a situação econômica brasileira nos anos 90 ainda, né? Bom, eu não vou me estender aqui, esse é um tema muito complexo, não vou ser leviano aqui tentar discuti-lo. É claro que a própria dinâmica macroeconômica tem contribuído para isso, é evidente, né? Essa situação de crescimento restringido, evidentemente, contribui para isso. Mas eu acredito que há algo mais, e não é porque ele está aqui que eu vou acreditar essa referência a ele. O João tem há bom tempo enfatizado a importância que o deslocamento progressivo ainda do polo dinâmico da economia mundial para países pobres em recursos naturais, relativamente pobres em recursos naturais, comparativamente, pelo menos, aos Estados Unidos, né, que isso pode gerar um espaço diferente para a inserção externa e talvez esteja, portanto, haja por detrás disso algo que não seja meramente conjuntural, que tem a ver com características da nova economia internacional. Bom, gente, isso tudo... Eu não estou falando nada de política industrial até agora, né? Isso é um preâmbulo imenso. Por que eu me estendi nele? Porque no Brasil, e aqui temos vários dos mais destacados, sem nenhum favor, os economistas da indústria e da inovação, nós temos nos habituado a nos concentrar nos debates sobre as dificuldades do catching-up. Isso a gente é um dos nossos chavões, né, Duda, há tanto tempo. Mas o quadro de uma regressão tão grande há tanto tempo, eu acho que muda um pouco, muda bastante, na verdade, a situação. A questão efetiva por países, hoje, me parece ser a de deter o falling behind. A ficha tem que cair. A gente está no falling behind e já faz tempo, né? E, além disso, para fazer isso, a gente precisa promover a reindustrialização do país, né? Eu não cheguei a passar aqui alguns dados, que esses são mais conhecidos, sobre o processo de desindustrialização. O Renato pediu para o Célio Iratuca, eu me apoiei no trabalho de um amigo de muitos aqui, o Paulo Morceiro, para apresentar esses dados aqui. E o ponto é que, também aqui no Brasil, né, mais do que nos Estados Unidos, o professor Vonortas nos mostrou aqui que um dos elementos da estratégia tríplice é um pacote de infraestrutura gigantesco, né? 1 trilhão, 2 trilhões de dólares, depende de como consiga, quanto dinheiro consiga, né? Quanto dinheiro o pessoal do Congresso permita. Aqui também isso é urgente, é absolutamente indispensável e absolutamente urgente. As políticas horizontais não podem ser esquecidas, né? E, a meu juízo, nós, me incluo, os economistas da inovação, temos subestimado essa questão. É absolutamente imperioso enfrentar esse desastre da infraestrutura, seja por razões sociais, seja pelo impacto macroeconômico de curto prazo, de ativação do crescimento econômico, e também, pela última razão, no nosso campo, né, de promoção do desenvolvimento e da competitividade. Eu poderia falar de muita coisa aqui, eu estou falando de infraestrutura no sentido mais amplo do termo, mas vou apontar algo que talvez rigorosamente não fosse incluído na infraestrutura, mas um único slide, com indicadores de educação, né? São indicadores de escolaridade, né, de anos de escolaridade da população com 25 anos ou mais. E vocês estão vendo ali, nós ficamos atrás da Indonésia, da Colômbia, da Bolívia. Com todo respeito a esses países, mas nós não podemos ficar atrás desses países em escolaridade, né? E eu poderia falar de várias outras questões horizontais desse tipo, poderia falar de questões tributárias, por exemplo. Uma política industrial não pode deixar de enfrentar as imensas dificuldades e distorções que existem no sistema tributário brasileiro. A estrutura tributária conspira, sim, contra a produção industrial. Os empresários choram com muita coisa, mas isso é verdade. A desoneração do IPI é um avanço, mas é muito pouco, porque não é o principal problema, né? O principal problema nesse campo é a acumulatividade da COFINS, é toda a barafunda de regulamentação do ICMS, E para avançar nisso de verdade é preciso fazer algo mais, né? Não basta desonerar o setor que estava mais onerado, que é a indústria, porque, por outro lado, a agricultura, que se gaba de ser o que é, ela praticamente não paga imposto nenhum, né? É preciso onerar a agricultura e é preciso onerar alguns setores de serviços que também pagam pouquíssimo de imposto no Brasil. Bom, esse era o meu recado para o meu público, digamos, meu público interno. Mas eu não quero falar só disso, né? Nada disso implica desimportância diante das políticas de inovação. Tá bom. Também aqui houve regressão. A regressão é mais recente, é mais sutil. Estão aí alguns dados de investimento em P&D. Os dados de patentes talvez sejam menos evidentes para mostrar isso. Mostram um crescimentozinho, mas, fundamentalmente, esse talvez seja o melhor indicador, essa é a participação das patentes brasileiras no escritório de patentes americanos. Ela cresceu, é ínfima, e ainda assim, por conta de alguns viéses que o Duda mencionou na sessão da manhã, né? No aumento do esforço de patenteamento das universidades, de organizações não empresariais. É bem estranho isso. Bom, indo finalmente ao ponto, meu tempo, para variar, me estendi demais, eu vou ter que passar rápido por isso aqui. Eu de política industrial, mesmo eu vou falar, além da ressalva que eu já fiz, eu vou falar de uma diretriz, eu já mencionei a diretriz, uma ressalva e 5 sugestões para a elaboração de uma política industrial e tecnológica. A diretriz é essa. Eu acho que nós temos que ter um foco importante em deter o falling behind, em combater o retrocesso, e isso envolve promover a reindustrialização. Eu vou falar um pouquinho, muito rapidamente, da direção disso. Segundo ponto é esse de que as políticas horizontais são indispensáveis. No campo, propriamente, de uma política industrial e tecnológica, eu quero acentuar 5 questões. Primeiro, a gente deve se preocupar em induzir a difusão de tecnologia, né? É política de inovação, mas no sentido amplo, acho que o Renato usou nesse sentido também. No nosso contexto, ela inclui a difusão de tecnologia existente em outros lugares e, sobretudo, com foco em algumas cadeias onde existem competências remanescentes, apesar do quadro que o João traçou hoje de manhã, ainda existe alguma coisa da onde se possa tentar reconstruir. Segundo ponto, e eu não vou falar nada, porque aqui é uma citação direta a você, Márcia, e ao André, fortalecer e ampliar a capacidade de absorção das empresas em geral. Isso é um esforço que tem que ser feito genericamente. Tem um trabalho recente da Márcia e do André, saiu na revista na Econômica, não foi? Eu não sei onde é que saiu. Bom, mas está aí, depois a gente pode encontrar. Tá? Não vou me estender, porque não tenho tempo para me estender. Terceiro ponto, na linha do que você falou, Duda, hoje de manhã, né, do diagnóstico, acho que tem um componente diagnóstico importante, que é revisar a experiência de políticas industriais e de ciência, tecnologia e inovação dos governos petistas. Houve, sim, bloqueios macroeconômicos muito importantes. As políticas macroeconômicas conspiraram contra durante boa parte do tempo, mas houve também erros na própria política. E a gente não pode avançar sem revisar essa experiência. É a última vez que eu vou te citar, João. O João tem uma frase ótima a esse respeito, que as políticas industriais dos governos petistas foram alternadamente fortes e focadas, né? Me desculpa se eu estiver traindo. Mas quando elas foram fortes, não eram focadas, e quando elas foram focadas, eram fracas, né? Então, elas nunca reuniram as duas potências ao mesmo tempo. Bom, isso leva ao quarto ponto, que a política deve ser focada e não dispersa e não de balcão, como essencialmente foi, né? Posso depois, se tiver tempo, detalhar um pouco isso. É uma questão importante. E, finalmente, a gente deve buscar, num país do tamanho do Brasil, buscar ativamente a articulação entre esferas de governo. Só com a articulação com esferas subnacionais de governo é possível capilarizar a política industrial num país como o nosso. Por honestidade intelectual, gente, eu também queria mencionar rapidamente 4 pontos que são restrições à potência da política industrial. Às vezes, o nosso discurso dos economistas industriais de inovação talvez subestime as restrições que existem à política industrial. Às vezes, a gente tem uma posição decididamente voluntarista em relação a isso. E tem, pelo menos, a meu juízo, 4 restrições importantes. A primeira delas é o time histórico. Apesar de termos coisas emergindo, tecnologias emergentes, o melhor timing em termos de janelas de oportunidade, aquelas em que os paradigmas técnico-econômicos novos estão surgindo, não me parece que a gente esteja nessa situação. Mas não estamos nos anos 80, nos anos 90. Mas vamos poder usar os benefícios que, por exemplo, a Coreia e a Taiwan usaram para construir a sua posição na indústria eletrônica. Associado a isso, e em grande medida em consequência, nós também não temos uma boa posição em termos de geografia da divisão internacional do trabalho. Com todas as mudanças, e são relevantes, que estão ocorrendo nas cadeias internacionais de trabalho, nas cadeias produtivas, nas cadeias globais de valor, nas cadeias de produção internacionalizadas, que o Renato mencionou, e eu não vejo nisso uma regressão geral da concentração da manufatura na Ásia. Terceiro ponto, a estrutura empresarial. Desde a coisa mais óbvia, né, o controle dos setores mais dinâmicos do Brasil por capital estrangeiro, mas também a conduta empresarial recentemente financiarizada não favorece a adoção de uma estratégia na linha que eu apontei. E, por fim, a resistência política dos setores associados à reprimarização, né? É uma resistência forte, ninguém deve subestimá-la de maneira nenhuma. Tudo isso conspira contra a potência de qualquer política industrial, a melhor política industrial que possa ser feita. Temos jovens aqui, não quero também terminar com esse tom fúnebre a minha exposição. Eu tenho mesmo uma esperança. A minha esperança é que se possa convencer o setor empresarial brasileiro de que uma outra trajetória abriria oportunidades para acumulação, né, muito maiores do que essas que a gente viveu nos últimos 40 anos. A minha esperança é a ganância deles, que a gente possa ativar a ganância com uma perspectiva de melhor potencial de acumulação em outra direção do que essa que tem sido seguida no Brasil. Ulisses, desculpa ter me estendido.
Muito obrigado. Obrigado, Marcelo. So, now we're going to the debate. As Jorge is the debater, he's going to make some questions and comments about the previous presentations. So go ahead, Jorge.
Bom, sei que todo mundo está cansado. É a última apresentação. Tá? Antes de passar para a apresentação, que vou tentar, né, ser em inglês, eu queria antes, obviamente, agradecer o convite, tá, do Duda e da Mar. Sempre um prazer. Tá? E, com certeza, é um encontro mais agradável, né? Mais, digamos, que você mais aguarda, mais espera, né, a cada ano é o daqui do CDPLA. Então, é sempre um prazer estar aqui. Tá? Muito legal. Né? My presentation will be more general about some kind of analytical foundations of the industrial policy in more contemporary perspective. But I also try to dialogue in some way with the presentation of Nick, trying to articulate some of these trends with the experience of the U.S. industrial policy. Okay, yeah? Well, how do you see this? Yeah. Where? Yeah. Okay. Now, just to begin, I'd like to mention, well, in the recent literature of industrial policy, some dimensions. Well, I think it can be easier to think about these dimensions: the rationality, the instrument, the guidelines, the focus, and the governance structure of the industrial policy. And it's possible to relate these dimensions with a huge debate that occurred in the last 30 years, so on, about industrial policy, where you can see a progressive process of rejuvenation, normalization, incorporation, and amplification, and in some way diversification of the issues of the industrial policy. In this process, you can have a tendency toward more kind of legitimation of the industrial policy, but this process also involves more ambitious industrial policies. In some way, you can get more legitimate in some way, but can also increase the risk of some frustration if the targets and so on that if don't occur. So there is a kind of balance between legitimation, more ambitious policies, and the risks of frustration of these policies. Well, in this context, and you see the contribution of some authors, I can identify five. I can mention 5 trends related to more contemporary debate about the issues of industrial policy. Well, I try to systematize in some way these trends. The first is related to a more activist, right? More active perspective in the implementation of industrial policy that involve new challenges, new missions, and some way a more integrative perspective of the instruments. A second relevant trend will be related to the political foundations of the industrial policy. The argument of Cheng and Andreoni of the economic the economic policy of the industrial policy, political policy of the political policy of the. The idea of the political policy of the of industrial policy, and also the role, the relevance of the role of coalitions, political coalitions, to sustain the objectives of industrial policy. The third trend can be related in some way to the process of evaluation, the systematic evaluation of the results of the industrial policy, and the role of more accountability. In this, related to this issue, you can articulate the possibility of use new technologies and new instruments to monitor and to capture in more effective way the impacts of this policy. I think this third third dimension can be relevant. The fourth trend can be related to the context of transition, reconversion, and resilience. It involves a more broad perspective of sustainability that are progressively incorporating the issues of industrial policy. And the fifth trend can be related to a kind of social embeddedness of the industrial policy. Not only involving social, but also environmental issues in a more inclusive and in some way in a perspective or a more progressive industrial policy. Well, how can this trend can be related to the experience of the American industrial policy that was mentioned by Nick? Well, in some way, the last point is not an attempt to establish a dialogue between this trend and the experience of the U.S., the industrial policy in U.S. that was discussed by Nick. Well, related to the first, you can mention the increase of the activities of industrial policy in Biden administration, but not motivated only by the specific trends related to the objective of industrial policy, but mainly by the struggle, the battle for the economic and geopolitical hegemony with China. It involves some specific issues, some specific missions, some specific objectives of the industrial policy. The second can be related to the challenge to maintain a strong domestic political coalition to sustain a more active industrial policy in the U.S. In some way, I would like to mention the possibility of sustaining in a more long horizon this policy in the context of the threat of Trump's return or some political conflict that can emerge in the next elections. Well, the third aspect is related to the process of policy evaluation and accountability. In fact, the U.S., you are discussing with Nick this point in some way. The U.S. maintain the leadership in the new technology, specifically in case of artificial intelligence. And this leadership can be a tool to a more effective evaluation of the impacts of industrial policy. This process of evaluation can be more effective in U.S. because of the capabilities in this technology. The fourth aspect is related to, in some way, the well-positioned situation of the U.S. in the context of energy transition and recovery. So despite the problems with the COVID, you can't consider in some way the U.S. That we have become a more resilient economy, can become a effective, a more resilient economy. And the five is about the possibility of industrial policy, more environmentally and socially responsible in the West. In the last year, the inequality tend to increase in U.S. How the industrial policy can be articulated to the reduction of inequalities and other issues. The possibility of a new Green Deal more inclusive for the perspective of social inclusion in some way. Okay? There are this point to discuss. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jorge. So, Professor Nick, do you want to answer the questions, the points?
Yeah. 5 more minutes, yes. Of course, these are big questions and require big answers. But the quick one is that there is a resurgence around the world, sort of a better realization that regions, countries can follow policies that will not stop globalization at its its feet. Because this is a big question these days, whether we are actually dismantling the system. The correct action would be not to dismantle it, because it's a nice system, but to put it in better shape than it was. Essentially, if you look at the analytical models that business people create these days, when they talk about investment and multinational corporations, the cost is not the only consideration, but taking care of the risks, the resilience, is the other very important variable that has entered the models. So, and I think this is where Renato was making a point here, because for countries like Brazil, this creates very important opportunities. Multinational corporations, you saw in the slides, there is a very serious effort from the federal government to make sure that the global value chains are made in ways that the country will not suffer again what it suffered with COVID when they broke up. This is now a serious realization. So the investments will not only be in one country, and that's where the opportunities arise for countries like Brazil. It's not that all the investment will come here, but some of it can come here. The question is what the country will offer for these investments, and I mean, you don't need to give anything back, but you need to offer a good labor force. You need to offer the expectation of a stable macroeconomic system. You need to offer friendliness to foreign investment. You need to offer opening markets. Potential receiving countries as Brazil need to understand why the international investments are reorganized now, and how they can position themselves to take part in this game. It's a much more sophisticated game now that is played, and it's played also by Europe. Europe has gone big time into this, very big, really very seriously. They are talking about, the Europeans even invented new terms, technology sovereignty. I don't understand this term. I mean, I really don't. What does it mean, technology sovereignty? What they mean is, I think, that you want to actually understand which are the technologies that are critical for you, and make sure that those technologies either are done locally or they can be accessed easily. I think that's what the Europeans mean, but they are going into this big time as well. So there is a new world opening up there, and we must be aware. That's why in my concluding remarks I said China has done extreme advances, amazing. I mean, everybody is admiring them and so forth. But the system in which they will play in the next few years is going to be very different. It's not going to be the same world that helped China advance. It's going to be different. And it's a multipolar world, the games. Those of you who know game theory, right? I mean, we study game theory. So you do, if you study game theory, the first principle is that the game with 2 players is very different from the game with 3 players. And the game for 3 players is very different from the game with many players, right? So we are going into such a thing now, multi-players, many players, each one of which wants to make sure that there will not be surprises down the road. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Professor. So I think we must return to this discussion at Vesperata. And so, thank you very much, Nicholas, Marcelo, Renato, and Jorge, and thank you very much for everybody who are here now until now. So, thank you. That's it.